So we open up this episode over Hickman's dead body, a reminder of all the heartbreak we got in the previous episode. But luckily, nothing hugely dramatic happens. Oh wait. Shit. In this episode, we get a lot of movement towards the new storylines and character arcs after this big, huge-ass conclusion we got with that battle between Harald and Aethelred. They gave us no time to really revel in the conclusions that came from that battle because they thrust us straight into what's happening next. If we look at Harald, for example, he gets attacked right away at the gates of York when he returns. This shows Harald that he doesn't have any time to dilly-dally around. He must step up his game now if he wants to retain his power. This is why he presented Magnus as a son of Ragnar and this beacon for him to follow behind rather than himself. He was pretty dismissive of Magnus and everything he had to say right as he walked in the camp, but now not only can he news Magnus, but he needs to news Magnus. Also, his speech was really good. He had dead bodies lying around him, so he was very intimidating, and he was yelling and he was saying all these grand things, and everyone was really backing him. And you could see that Magnus was lighting up at everything he was saying as well. So it's really great to see that Harald's still becoming a central part of the story, especially because myself and many of you have started to like him more and more this season. He's probably one of my favorite characters in the show right now. Speaking of a character who's beginning to blossom and really expand his storyline, let's move to Hvitserk. So as Hvitserk's just strolling around Kattegat in the markets, he sees this curious old man, and he asks him about some of the artifacts he's got around him, and he shows him the Buddha. It's interesting because a lot of the Sons of Ragnar have taken on very similar kind of storylines and arcs and personalities of the first generation of Vikings we had. Ubbe is this interesting reflection of Ragnar building up this farming community, siding with the English, really going down that path. Aethelred and Ivar are the more ambitious sides of Eetbjerg and Ragnar, and as pointed out, it seems like Bjorn has a lot of Rollo in him. But Hvitserk's always been the old child, and rather than just giving him a stereotypical Viking path, he might be the more interesting and different of the bunch. For someone lost in identity issues, having this really concrete and new, fresh identity about the oneness of the universe could really appeal to him. He never really had much of a super connection with his gods and didn't understand any messages he got from them. So if there was ever a point in his life that he would just randomly dive into this kind of different new way of thinking, this is it. This also isn't just a way to explore Hvitserk's character, but also this different spiritual way of thinking. And more importantly, how people from the Viking world interact with it, like Ivar. And his first thoughts were, you're going a bit crazy, so I don't see it being exactly the most well-taken thing. I really did enjoy seeing Hvitserk as the more spotlight of the Kattegat storyline and Ivar more the backseat, so hopefully this is something we get a lot more of, so we can expand his character and what that means for the Viking world as a whole. Also, I really enjoy how we're finally seeing Ivar somewhat drop the act a bit, and Hvitserk's kind of being led into what Ivar's thinking and how he's acting, and it seems like our hopes are maybe coming true and that he hasn't been delusional this whole time and was very strategic of what he did with Lagertha and maybe even with his god stuff. So we actually had a really strong Bjorn episode, which we haven't had in a long time. And for once, it seems like his relationship is going to be genuine and mutual, rather than the equivalent of the whole arm on the shoulder, hey, and a wink. So Aethelred sticks to his word and signs the paper giving over the rights and lands of East Anglia to Ubbe under him as king. This fundamentally changes the relationship Ubbe and him will have. They are far more equal than they've ever been. Aethelred is still king, but now Ubbe is a landholder, baptized Christian, and an alderman. As I said in my preview breakdown here, Aethelred won't be able to throw down the authority card nearly as much before. Ubbe still has a pledge of fealty to fight and protect Wessex if he's called to arms, but he can't use the whole I'll throw you in jail and kill you at a whim if I don't like you. So they actually make Ragnar's dream happen. They have the lands, the rights to them, the fertile pastures, and Bjorn still feels apart, different. He knows this is not the future he wants for himself, and he knows his community can never truly accept him the way he is. And so he decides that he needs Harald, and he needs his army. The farewell scene with Bjorn, Torvi, and Ubbe was very powerful. I actually thought it was quite a final goodbye. I don't know if we're going to see them interact or be part of each other's lives at all really past this. It seems Bjorn has finally understood and accepted the path that Ubbe wants to take to realize their father's dream, but he knows he can't do that himself. And so Bjorn rocks up to York, And Harald opens his arm and smiles like he always does when he greets in another son of Ragnar. But this time, the smile, it's not quite as deep. I really love the discussion I had with you guys in the comment section of my preview breakdown about the future of Bjorn and Harald. Many of you were kind of in two different camps. There was the one I laid out about how we see this conflict rising between the two of them. Bjorn and the other sons of Ragnar have been a stain on Harald's life from the beginning. Merely having Bjorn around him undermines his authority and leaves him open to losing more power and that chance for his kingdom again. And then many of you believe the show is going to go down the history of Harald as a historical figure as he unites all of Norway and becomes king. Now, I've always been very cautious of how far we take the history literally from what happens, especially as they love to swap histories and events between different characters. They could easily give all the future of Harald over to Bjorn. But interestingly, Bjorn also becomes the king of Sweden, which is right next to Norway. So perhaps they make a deal where Harald gets to become the king of all Norway and unite that land and rule from Kattegat, and he'll give his armies to Bjorn in exchange afterwards to go conquer Sweden and become the king of that land. Either way, this storyline is going to be so interesting, and they still have to get past Ivar the Boneless. So if you have any other thoughts about this still, leave it in the comment section below. I want to really dive back into this again. And then we get this entire betrayal of Aethelred. Alfred chooses to forgive him. He's a bigger man and he knows he needs his brother to be a commander and someone at his side. He doesn't want to betray his family like Aethelred did. He gives Judith permission to confront him, talk to him, to see his son's reasoning, and Judith doesn't buy it. Then Alfred gets sick, he's passed out incapacitated, and the power lies all with Aethelred. He is popular with the Eldermen and can really keep the peace while Alfred is down, but is that what he wants to do? We see doubt in both Judith's mind and we see the influence of his new wife, which is very powerful. And so Judith decides to take things well beyond any mother and poison him. This act is so brutal, so brazen, so extreme. It shocked us all. She is so out of it in this. She cries and breaks down as he literally bleeds to death in front of him. It's like even Cersei, this horrible, wicked woman, even she cares for her children still. And the death of Joffrey puts a fire under her ass to just take down everyone around her. I could see Judith being angry because he wanted to kill Alfred, another son, but Aethelred is still her son. She has clearly chosen a favorite, and that is Alfred. It was a really powerful scene. I think Aethelred is this character that had so much going for him. He was really conflicted and interesting. He had this very much vibe of Aethelwulf going with him. His father went through so much shit, was so many betrayals from Judith and Eckberg and his sons and Magnus, and he had just dealt with it. He did what needed to be done. He was loyal. He got things done, not only for himself and his family, but for his kingdom. And I saw that that could be the path Aethelred takes. But no. Judith takes things into her own hands. Do you think that Aethelred would have betrayed Alfred? Do you think what Judith did was right? We had an interesting debate around that in the last video, and I really want to hear you guys' thoughts again here. Because I really don't know. It felt so wrong to watch, and it feels like he deserved another chance, especially because Alfred was going to give it to him. But maybe he was blinded by him being his brother. Maybe this had to happen. I really love to know what you guys think. And if there's anything else from the entire episode that you think I really need to cover or you want me to talk about, you thought was really interesting, tell me that in the comment section as well, because I want to do extra content on this episode, maybe a scene breakdown or a Q&A, something else to really just discuss all the things we've got going. Because there's so many new plot lines and big power shifts and big character deaths like Aethelred and Heckman. So thanks for watching this video. It would be really great if you show your support through that like button and follow all of the Vikings content we've got out this week. SKOL!